Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And it has been very interesting to sit here and listen to members on both sides talk about transport and about housing. And as the member for Laverton said, approach this in a mature way, which I hope to do this evening, Deputy Speaker. A little hard to do when I hear a lot of preposterous statements, though, and talk of activity centres. And a quick survey of my Nationals colleagues. Have you got an activity centre in your neck of the woods, have you? No, because you need access to adequate healthcare, public transport. No. In fact, the Mildura is the largest regional city in Australia, Deputy Speaker, without a passenger train. Now, this has been going on for a long time. In fact, the member for Mornington was actually the CEO of Mildura Regional Development back in 2015. So when the Labor government, when they talk about transport, investment into public transport, over 10 years we've had to invest in public transport to Mildura. Maybe then we could decentralise some of these activity centres. The member for Mornington has been fighting for this for a long time, as have I. Lack of a passenger rail. So, no, activity centres are kind of irrelevant. I'll tell you what is relevant to us, though, adequate housing. Let's talk about the housing issues. This is the housing crisis that we see now after over 10 years of a Labor government is one that they have created. And this, in regional areas, this is not just about supply and how decimated the rental market is because of poor policy decisions by the Labor government. It's also a planning issue because one size does not fit all, particularly when it comes to regional planning. And I have spoken to the member for Polwarth about this even just today, because there is not a week go by where my office doesn't get inquiries and complaints, and conversations need to be had. I had 2 community groups come to me just last week, with some planning issues and things that, provisions that might work in the city, but they are so inflexible and they just do not work in regional towns like Redcliffs, like Merbeen, and there's no flexibility to be able to move at all. For example, worker accommodation. Putting large, and this again might sound great on paper, but it's not practical for communities in small towns like Redcliffs and like Merbeen, where we see, and get this, and we've heard a lot of talk about hypocrisy as well. The childcare centre that is desperately needed in Redcliffs and has been announced is across the road from a workers' accommodation facility, let's call it, that houses a lot of palm scheme workers, which again, the agricultural industry needs in Mildura because everything is connected to the agriculture sector. We need those workers, but that facility, which has now got a planning permit application in for 109 beds, is right across the road from the new childcare centre and the early childhood learning centre, which is 50 metres away. The complaints and the crime that has already occurred in another facility in the next block, including sexual assault, there's been a murder, and a childcare centre is planned for that very same vicinity. Is that good planning policy, Deputy Speaker? No. I would argue that it's not at all good planning policy at all, not good planning in any aspect. When we're talking about also informal worker accommodation, let's talk about the illegal rooming houses and illegal building modifications that happen all over. And this is not a case, this is not because people are trying to do the wrong thing, Deputy Speaker. It's because the system's failed. It's because the Labor government has failed to provide adequate housing where people need it in the regions. So we can talk about activity centres near healthcare, near public transport, near public amenity, near services, but when you haven't got that because of lack of investment in regional Victorians, what are we supposed to do? Without those workers that we need in our ag sector in particular are needed on the ground, and provision has been changed so that in the past property owners would be able to order dongers, if they had their planning permits approved, to house their workers on farm, which was difficult in the first place, and they would be able to be built, prefab, off-site and transported. Now the provisions mean that those bedrooms and the rooms have to be bigger. They don't fit on the back of a truck. So the solutions that might look good on paper are completely impractical on the ground. So we've got illegal extensions happening, and I know this because CFA captains and members come and talk to me and show me after a fire has occurred, after switchboards have melted because they are overcrowded and they are unsafe. So there is a housing crisis, but people are having to do whatever it is they can do to put a roof over their head, and if that is housing people in their sheds, under tarps, under cool room panels, in completely unsafe and unregulated accommodation, causing all sorts of social issues and community cohesion issues in these centres, it is absolutely preposterous to say that we on this side are blocking housing. It hasn't even been thought of. We're not even an afterthought in regional Victoria for things like that. We don't even register. So you can imagine the angst of us sitting on this side when we hear all the talk about activity centres and levels. We can't get planning approvals or adequate, flexible enough planning provisions to build adequate, safe houses to house people safely. This will cost lives. And when CFA volunteers are coming to me on a weekly basis saying, this house is unsafe, this house, we got called out to another one because of the overcrowding and the overload on the power supply, because I'm not sure if you know this, but if correct roofing and infrastructure, correct building codes are not being met, they're not putting solar panels on their roof. It's drawing out of the grid, and often they're tapping into that illegally. They're tapping into plumbing supply illegally. There is open sewage pits in backyards. Councils are struggling to enforce any of these rules because there's no building surveyors to do it. And here's the other thing. If someone was to make a complaint that someone's living in a shop front or there's an illegal rooming house, how much notice does the council have to give to the property owner before they can go and inspect it? And they can only do it during business hours. Do you know how long? 48 hours, which is enough to pull all of those people out of that place and put them somewhere else, so when the council inspectors walk in, everything looks fine, no one living in it. It's like playing whack-a-mole. So after it's been inspected and ticked off, they all go back in there and we can see it. I was talking to some community members and I went and visited Redcliffe's over the weekend, and they were astounded that this has been going on for many years, and I was the first one that they've spoken to in local government and in state government previously, before my time, that actually understood what they were talking about. And I understand because I live it every day, because we are integrated in our communities, and I do understand. So there is not just a housing problem, it turns into a workforce problem because there's no adequate housing for workforce. It's a safety problem, a community cohesion problem, like I said, and it's infrastructure, not to mention the rental market that's been decimated. And if we have a look at some of the figures and we talk about how much the rental market has dropped over I can tell you that trying to get a rental in the city of Mildura, just the city of Mildura, is almost impossible. You've got people camping down on the river. You've got people living in cars. You've got people living in caravans in backyards, and that's not unique to Mildura. That is everywhere. And how can Mildura grow without adequate public transport? Out into our smaller periphery towns as well, like Merbein and Redcliffe's, where an AOD centre is about to go and a new early childcare centre is about to go. No adequate public transport, no passenger train, no housing. We haven't even been an afterthought to think about the largest regional city in Australia without a passenger train growing. We have the space, we have the land, we have the people wanting to invest and build housing, But because the planning scheme and all of the ideas come out of the city, it's city-centric policy that is failing regional Victorians every single day. It's regional Victorians that are paying the price because Labor can't manage housing.